Welcome to the Budgets and Brews podcast. In this episode, we interview Rachel Hernandez, author, blogger, and host of the Adventures in Mobile Homes podcast, and discuss how Rachel got involved in mobile home investing and how you can too, a step-by-step procedure and strategies on how Rachel purchased her first deal, and the pros and cons of investing in mobile homes. At the end of the episode, join us for Rich and Tony's beer review, where we act like beer connoisseurs, but in reality have no idea what we're talking about. Stay tuned to find what beer's on tap. What's up, everyone? You're listening to the Budgets and Brews podcast with your hosts, Rich and Tony, where we discuss, chat, and ramble about this week's finance topic. Our content ranges from personal finance, investing, getting out of debt, budgets, business, and beer. My name is Rich, and this week's hot topic is hidden investment opportunities in mobile homes, featuring Rachel Hernandez. With over a decade of experience starting out like most real estate investors investing in single-family homes, and after finding herself always working and burnt out from being a landlord, she dove into the world of mobile home investing where she considers it to be more fun. As an author and blogger, her books have hit #1 on Amazon and has earned her a spot as one of the top 20 real estate investing blogs. She has been featured in MH Village, Forbes, Motley Fool, and other real estate publications as well. Recently, she took the spot for #1 writer for mobile homes on Quora. So without further ado, Rachel Hernandez.
Hi, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It is such an honor, and I am so excited to hear more about your journey and your story, and it's a pleasure being able to chat with you today.
Great. Well, I'm ready.
All right. So the first question that I have for you is, how did you get into real estate investing?
Sure. I get this question a lot. Well, I first got into real estate investing. I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and I'm sure you've heard of that book.
That was my very first book that I read as well.
Yes. And in that book, it was really life-changing because I learned the concept of passive income, which is income that doesn't depend on me to make it. So it was a really new concept and eye-opener for me when I read it in the beginning of my real estate investing career. So before, the only type of income I knew was earned income through a job. So, Rich, my background is in sales and marketing. I was a sales executive for various Fortune 500 corporations before getting into real estate investing. And I also had marketing positions in the entertainment industry as well. So when I heard the concept of passive income through the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I got really excited. So I just decided to do it through real estate investing. So the way I started out was, I started out looking for deals for other investors by becoming a bird dog and then a wholesaler and just in single family homes. And then I just try to build up cash. Once I built up enough cash, then I started buying and holding single family homes myself for cash flow as a landlord. Though I became a burnt out landlord. And it was a couple of years after that, I read Lonnie Scruggs' course, now a book, Deals on Wheels, that I decided to sell my entire real estate portfolio in single family homes. And then I got into mobile home investing. So here I am.
And we actually had a podcast episode all about passive income streams. And we gave about 22 different techniques and different ways that somebody can get involved in passive incoming. But would you be able to, you mentioned a couple terms. You mentioned bird dog and wholesaling. Can you describe what those are?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you the difference, Rich. A bird dog is someone who looks for deals for other investors. So a bird dog, this is what I did in the beginning. I would just find the leads and I would just find the motivated sellers. I'd gather all the information, how much the seller is looking for the property, when they want to sell, what the repairs are needed. So as a bird dog, you really don't take the risk in terms of signing on the dotted line and doing contracts. You just kind of get the information to the investor. And so once I got the information to the investor, then they took it on. They would work the lead, put it together, sign on the dotted line, put a deal together with a contract, then I would be paid a bird dog fee for finding the deal for that service. And another way to do it is doing the deal together and splitting the profits. So either way, you get, a fee for your service, or by splitting the profits and doing the deal together, if you end up reselling it with the other investor, those are different ways you can do it as a bird dog.
And your
that's
amount of money made is based on the value of that sale then?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So as a bird dog, you don't really have any risk. It's just more your time. And it's a good way for someone to start out who has a lot of time, but they don't really have the money and they still need to build up the cash to buy and hold, but they don't want to take the risk. Take it a step further. If you become a wholesaler, I went from becoming a bird dog to becoming a wholesaler. You take it a step further, you actually sign the contract as a wholesaler between you and the seller. So not only do you, as a wholesaler, you can find the lead, take that lead, negotiate with the seller, put it under contract, and then you wholesale the deal to your end buyer, another investor, for a quick sale. So either you wholesale it by assigning your interest in the contract, you just kind of assign it to the end buyer, which is your investor, or you can close on the deal as if like you buy it and then do a double closing, and then you turn around and it gets resold to the investor. That's called a double closing. So there's two different ways to do it as a wholesaler, but really as a wholesaler, you are taking the risk because you're signing on the dotted line.
And so along that journey, you were learning, you were practicing, you were out there in the field, and then you decided to start owning your own properties, as you mentioned, the single family homes, and you were earning some passive income off that as a landlord. You burnt out a little bit and decided to go ahead and sell your whole portfolio, which sort of got you into mobile home investing. So how did you come across that niche and move from the single family into the mobile home?
Sure. Well, it was really that book by Lonnie Scruggs, The Deals on Wheels, that really influenced me. Rich, you probably know when, if you buy single family homes, most times you're going to have some kind of mortgage or financing on the property. And what I learned is that, yes, with the financing, you're actually using other people's money. You just give a down payment and then closing costs to bring to the table. But what I learned is that if you're going to be bringing in financing, that there's a certain chunk of the rent and of the monthly payment that you receive that goes towards that in addition to the expenses. So if you have that, the mortgage to pay, and then any type of maintenance expenses, and even more if you're in a homeowners association and you have a homeowners association fee, and then maybe you have some kind of warranty on the home as well too, a home warranty, in terms of maintenance issues, it could really eat up into your cash flow. And for me, at one point, I did bring in property managers. So that's another percentage of the rent going towards, that are being taken away from the cash flow. So, it was one of those things where the cash flow is just, it wasn't enough for me. And at the time, the market was really great. It was basically a seller's market. It was at the height of the market, after I had been doing this for a while. And then I had read about the mobile homes through Lonnie Scruggs' book, Deals on Wheels. And I just got inspired to, why don't I just do this, buy these homes with cash and not even have a mortgage with the mobile homes. But, I'd be at ground zero. I'd have to learn the business from the ground up, because it's just like any other business. Mobile homes, it is a niche. So you really have to learn it and then get good at it. And now I've been doing it for over a decade, and I feel that I've kind of mastered it already.
Yeah, no, it looks like it, especially with your podcasts that you put out there, and the blogging and everything, and those will be entered in the show notes as well. So any listener who wants to find more in-depth information on this, please check that out and support Rachel. But what made you think that you were going to be successful? So moving from the single family into here, it's selling everything off, taking that leap, you read the book, did the class, everything, but what was like, okay, I'm going to be great at this and not have that fear? Because even for real estate investing for myself, I went and I got my real estate license. I was like, I'm ready to go, but there's that feel of doing that first deal. Is it because maybe you built up some of that courage with the other real estate investment that you have been doing?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rich. Well, actually, I had the fear. I'm not going to lie to you. I did. And the hardest part, I believe, with the mobile home investing, the way that Lonnie Scruggs had taught it, is that I basically buy these homes in communities, mobile home parks. So there's a lot of relationship building going on because you actually have to maintain a relationship and establish a relationship with the park manager or the owner of the community, because they own or manage the community to even do business in the park. And you have to get their okay that you can buy a home in there, let it stay, and then offer it and fill it in with a resident. So that was probably one of the hardest things I had to do. And it took me a while. I mean, I just had to kind of push myself. It did help that I have a sales background, but I just had to kind of push myself. I got rejected a lot of times by different park managers and owners, but I just kept pushing on until I found someone who was willing to work with me. In terms of what kept me going, it was just kind of one of those things where like, well, let's try a different park or a different community, with a different manager or a different owner, and let's see what happens. And that's exactly what I did. And then once I did it more and more, it actually just got easier, just like riding a bike.
Can you describe like some of the big difference between the mobile homes and then if you were to just buy a single family or invest in regular real estate properties?
Sure. Well, basically, what I do with the mobile homes, I buy them as personal property. So, personal property is basically you're just buying the home itself. Where it sits, someone else owns that land. Okay. So, if you're buying in a mobile home park, the park owner owns that land. And for the home to be able to sit on that piece of land or lot, as they call it, you have to pay lot rent to the park, like kind of like as a rental space for it to sit there. But for you to actually have it stay in that park, you have to, if you're going to be a resident living in there, you have to pass their application process, and they got to check you out to see if you can pay them back. Just like, applying for an apartment, they, check it, doing a rental application. So that's basically what the difference is. As opposed to a single family home, you're buying the home, but also the land underneath the home as real property. So as personal property, you're actually looking at a faster closing. It's going through the state entity that is in charge of titling manufactured homes in the area. So a lot of times that could be the DMV or a different state government run office. As opposed to, okay, I've got to close on a mobile home, on a piece of real estate, a land as real estate, or a single family home. You have to go through the title company and go through that, which could be a longer process.
Now, when you had the intentions to purchase a mobile home in one of these lots and rent that out, does that conversation happen before you make that purchase with the owner of that property? Or is it after you purchase the property, now it's personal property, then you have that conversation with the manager of that lot?
Yeah, the first thing you need to do, and this was my mistake starting out, and a lot of investors make this mistake as well too, is you have to approach the park manager or the park owner. Check out the park to see if it's a community that you want to do business in, and you've got to talk to the park manager or the owner, establish that relationship, and see if it's okay for you to do business in that park. I just released a podcast episode, I think it was episode 8, how to talk to park managers, on the approach that I use and what works and how to establish the rapport. But it could take some time. So it's not going to happen overnight. but you have to build a relationship first. And then once they give you the okay, yes, you can
Hmm.
work in this park, then that's when you go out and look for opportunities and talk to
Okay.
sellers and look at homes. I did it the other way around in the beginning.
Hmm.
And then I approached the park manager, and the park manager was like, no, you can't work in this park. And no matter how many times I went back to this park manager, the park manager kept saying, no, you can't work. I'm sorry. I mean, she was nice about it, but still, it was a hard lesson learned.
Yeah.
And it was such a good deal, I thought, because the home was they were only selling it for $3,000. So
Yeah.
my
It,
only other option would be to move the home, but I mean, I hadn't even done my first deal yet, and I didn't even want to get into that because that's a completely different animal. When you're moving homes, and so much can go wrong.
and I was going to ask you what your strategy is when you're investing in these mobile homes, but it seems like the biggest one is working with those park managers and how to approach that. And it's the networking and the communication to get that foot in the door of that property first. Would you think that that is the biggest strategy? And are there other things that are involved in that process?
Yeah, that probably is the biggest hurdle because you can't really buy a home in a park and keep it there unless you have a good relationship, a working relationship with the park manager or the owner. Now, you can buy the home and then move it to a piece of land or another park that you have a relationship with a park manager or owner, but I don't recommend people doing that, moving homes if they're just starting out, because there's just a lot. I mean, there's a lot of costs involved, but there's just a lot of liability involved, and so much can go wrong during a move. So it's better to try to just buy a home in a community, spend your time trying to build relationships with the park manager or the owners of these communities, and then go and find homes or and talk to sellers in those parks
Hmm.
to try to buy those homes. That's probably the best use of your time when first starting out.
Just out of curiosity, what does something like that cost to move a mobile home if it's in the same state, maybe less than 20 miles?
Right, right, right. It will depend on the area, but I will tell you, if you're going to be moving something like a single wide, which is just basically, it's just a single, usually it's about 16 by 76 or 14 by 76 in length. Basically, that costs, if you're going to be moving something called a double wide, it's going to be double of the moving costs of a single wide. So for example, if a single wide is 16 by 76, they're asking $3,000 just for the move.
Hmm.
Then probably for the double wide, it's going to be double that, which
Wow.
6,000. And then you've got the hookups. You got to connect the electrical, the water, the plumbing, the air conditioning, and that really depends on the contractor. But then you also have to deal with permits, like moving permits and all that.
Hmm.
So it's very logistical. So that's why, as a beginning mobile home investor, it's just a lot to take
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
So it's probably better just to kind of start with the parks first, do a couple deals, build your network, and then when you're ready, if you do want to go into learning about moving mobile homes, then you can.
Now, the next question I have is how do you know if you're getting a good deal? So let's say you talk to the park manager, you're in there, I guess you're shopping around. What are some things that you look for? And then, some would say that there's like a stigma involved with mobile home parks. What types of parks are there? And then what kind of areas do you personally invest in? I'm thinking about that is when I'm going to be looking for a deal, it's not like you have a real estate agent. Does that exist? Do you have an agent to help say, oh, this is good, this appliance is bad, this sold for X amount of money, where you can pull something up like on the MLS or have some information on that park? Or is there any information for you? How do you know?
Yeah, well, the best resource is going to be your park manager or the owner because they know what's being sold in that park. They know what's being rented in that park. They know the years and models, and also the residents who live in the park because they got to see them every month when they pay the lot rent. And there's always a story. But in terms of how do I know if I'm getting a good deal or not, it's really market research. And basically you have to just know where you're buying. So if you're buying in a particular park, you'd have to approach the park manager and find out, what homes have sold, what year, what condition, how long did it stay on the market, what types of things needed to be fixed up. And a lot of that information is going to come directly from the park manager or the owner. You can also talk to the residents. So, yeah, there's a lot more involved with mobile home park investing, buying these homes in the parks than the single family homes. Because, yes, in the single family homes, you've got the MLS and all the information's out there, as long as if you're licensed or if you have an agent that you're working with, they can give you the information. With mobile homes in parks, you have to do a little bit more digging around. So what I tell people is that you really need to learn your market. And it's, as you can tell, it's a lot of just, I call it interviewing.
Yeah, well, like you said before, it's that park manager seems like everything ties back to them. That's the biggest resource. And if you can get in with them, you might have a good shot of getting into the park and then starting to own some real estate within there.
Exactly. And then the question about what types of parks are there out there. But you've got your three basic parks. You got your low end parks, and these are the parks that you think of when you think of mobile home park with that negative stigma. You said,
I think you
and a
mentioned
lot of
8
people
Mile
have
in one
that.
of your
Yes.
articles. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So you got the low end parks, and there's really nothing wrong with those types of parks. I know a lot of investors, that's their bread and butter, and they do just fine. And those types of parks work with their personality. It didn't for me. I did try it. I mean, I've tried different types of parks buying, and it just didn't work for my personality. So that's the low end parks. And then you've got middle of the road parks, which is kind of an in between the low end parks and then the high end parks. And the high end parks are more like they're 4 or 5 star parks that have the clubhouse and the pool, and they do have strict rules. It's kind of like a homeowners association, an HOA. You've got to keep everything neat and tidy and the appearance of your home, but it actually maintains the park and maintains the appearance of the park. Yeah. So there are some investors, they don't like high-end parks because of that, and also residents. But then for me, it really worked with my personality because they're more corporate in nature. And like I said, I have a background in corporate sales. So it kind of worked for me in terms of my personality. And then the type of clientele that they cater to is more on the higher end side. So it just kind of worked out. But those are basically the 3 types of parks that are out there. And when people are just starting out, I just kind of tell them, you got to find out for yourself. Just because working in higher end parks works for me doesn't necessarily mean it'll work for you, and vice versa.
I'm sure this is in your 8th episode of How Do You Talk to the Park Managers, but is that first conversation, is that an email, a telephone call, or is it an in-person face-to-face?
Before COVID, coronavirus, it was basically a walk-in, and just walk through the door, and you just say, hey, my name is Rachel, and I just was passing through, and I noticed the park, and I just came to get some more information, and that's it. And then you would just listen. But now with COVID, a lot of parks either they're still open, but they're doing it by appointment only. So it's going to be more challenging. I don't suggest an email though, because these park managers, they've got so much on their plate and they're not going to remember.
Yeah.
But what I do suggest, and I think I did mention this in episode 8, after you have that conversation, you have your business card, just with your basic information, your name, your phone number, your email, get their business card, send them a follow-up email. It was nice to talk to you and meet with you. And then they'll have that as a record, if you continue the relationship. But that's kind of how I use technology such as email.
That's great advice. Now, what I'm most excited for is this next question. if you can walk us through your first deal and sort of dive into the numbers, really show listeners like, hey, this is what something looks like, and this is a return you might see.
Sure, no problem. Well, my first deal, it was actually in a nice park. And I'll be honest, it did not happen overnight. It took me a while to build the relationship with the park manager. And when I first approached the park manager, she was really nice, but just kind of standoffish. I don't really know you, but keep checking back. So I did that, and it actually took me 8 months to put this deal together. And this is basically the majority of the time was actually just going back in and talking to the park manager. I wasn't even looking for the homes yet. It was just kind of like I just needed to warm up to her,
Mm-hmm.
And then so basically it got to a point where it's like, okay, Rachel, you can do business in this park. And then once she gave me the go ahead, then I went to look for deals in the parks and opportunities from sellers. So basically my first deal in that park, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And I believe it was like a 1980s style. And the family that was living in it, they had owned the home and lived there for 10 years. And they were basically just at the point they were ready to move out of the community and live somewhere else. They already had an idea of where they wanted to live. They had no for sale by owner sign. No, you didn't even know the home was for sale. So basically, they just found me because I was out passing out flyers. I buy mobile homes. My name's Rachel, and I was out there talking to residents. Mm-hmm. So they called me on one of my flyers. And just to make a long story short, we did a lot of negotiating back and forth, and we did finally settle on a price. I bought the home for $3,600 cash.
Wow.
And it had some cosmetic issues, but I did pretty much a lot of the work myself. I did have a handyman. I think we had some siding issues that we need to deal with. It cost just a couple $100 on the outside of the home. But after the family moved out, I filled the home with another family. I believe it took me about 2 weeks to fill the home. And this new family, they paid me $1,000 to move in and $250 per month for the next 4.5 years. So
was that $1,000 a security deposit?
It's just like, I call it like a move-in fee. Basically, you just move in, because what I do, I do a lease with an option to purchase. So I'm really working with people who actually want to, buy the home in the future. Okay. And I call it a move-in fee, and basically it's their move-in fee to move in the home and have that option to purchase. So yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the total on that, is definitely more than $3,600.
Yeah. I think doing the math on that was like $14,500.
Something like that.
Yeah. And that was a two bedroom, 1 bath.
Yeah, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, and it was my first deal, and they did not have a for sale by owner sign on the home.
That is awesome, and I'm glad you were able to do that, and I'm sure that gave you a lot of hope and success going forward too, just knowing that yes, I did it, and I was able to find something. This deal worked out. I was able to cash flow it. I was able to make a profit and everything.
Yeah, and it was great because the sellers, because it was my first deal, and I wanted to do everything kind of, when you approach something for the first time, I really wanted to do it right. They even cleaned it for me, so that was great. I saved on cleaning costs.
Now, when you do have a deal and you have a tenant in there and they're paying you rent, also, involving with the property manager, do they get anything from that? Do you have to pay them a commission of any sort of part of that monthly check?
No, actually, I mean, that's the thing, being in real estate, you always think, oh, it's a commission, it's the money. And it's funny because being in the mobile home park investing business, it's not really about that. It's about the relationship. So I've talked to a lot of park managers, and I'm like, well, maybe, you want a reward. And they're like, no, I don't need the money, and none of that. So what I've actually done is, for the people that I have a working relationship with, I've kind of found out what are their likes, what are their dislikes. Like, they really like going out to this place to eat, this restaurant. Then I'll give them a gift card. Or, they have kids and they always look forward to going to a certain amusement park. We'll get them tickets to that amusement park. And they actually appreciate that more than if you just kind of like well, I can write you a check, for helping me out as a fee. And they're not even interested in that.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if those types of gestures help you sort of expand your networking. I don't know if mobile home managers talk with one another locally, but if they're like, hey, do you know Rachel? Have you heard of this? They came in the other day. Someone might be able to attest and say, yeah, she's, phenomenal.
Yeah, it does. Because so basically, one of the parks I was working with, the assistant, she became a manager of a sister park. And I was trying to get into that park for the longest time. I just didn't click with the managers that they had.
Mhm.
But so she finally got into that park on a management position. And I was able to do business in that park once she finally got that position, because she remembered, oh, Rachel, you're the one that would get me a present during Christmas time, when she was working for a manager as an assistant. So now I can do business in that park, and that park has over 1,000 lots.
Wow.
So yeah, she's like, you can do whatever you want here. You can do all the business you want, So it all comes back. You're right. It does.
That's awesome.
It does. It all comes back.
As we sort of wrap this up, what would you think are the pros and cons? Now, we talked throughout this a little bit of some ups and downs, but if you had to sort of summarize everything, what do you think some of the pros and cons of investing in mobile homes would be?
Well, we talked a little bit about the pros. One of them is it's less money out of your pocket as a real estate investor than your traditional single family home. One of the reasons is because they are made more cheaply in terms of the materials, but they actually are made up to code, HUD code, in a factory. So there is some kind of oversight with these manufactured homes. Mm-hmm. So less money out of your pocket, less competition, because a lot of investors, they tend to look down on mobile homes. They're like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm too good for that, right? And then also less competition on getting into these communities, because not everyone can actually get into these communities. It really depends on the personality of the investor and the approach, and also the park manager or owner's own personality. Because a lot of times, not everyone likes me, Rich. So they may not like me or my personality, and I've just had to move on and go to another park. So those are some of the pros of the mobile home investing business. Some of the cons, a lot of people say, well, it depreciates. It's not going to go up because it's a depreciating asset, which is true. But if your end goal is to sell it for a chunk of cash, like real estate, then yes. But if your goal is cash flow and you're able to buy these homes with very little financing or all cash, as of what I did, then you're going to get more cash flow out of the property. Who cares if it's depreciating? One of the things I will say is you just want to make sure you put residents in the home that will take care of it. Otherwise, it's going to be a mess. A depreciating asset and it's not taken care of is not a good combination.
Right. And you said that the one deal you did, you were able to get some tenants in there within 2 weeks. Is that normal, or does usually it take longer than that?
It depends on the area, and it depends on the park. And it does depend on the investor, because I will tell you, I've had good deals like that, and I've had bad deals. And one of my bad deals, I call my $2,000 nightmare. And
you have an article on that too.
Yeah, I do. And it's in my book, Adventures in Mobile Homes, which you can link in the show notes if you like. I talk about my $2,000 nightmare, where I bought the home for $2,000, but it was not in a nice park. It was in a more of a low-end park. And the types of clientele that actually were attracted to my home and the park, well, they did not fit with my personality. So I was just like, I cannot put you in this home. I was rejecting applicants left and right. The park manager's like, Rachel, you're too picky. You've got like 50 applications, and I'm like, they just don't fit with my personality, and they're not passing like my standards. I have standards. So what I actually did, Rich, in the nicer parks, I would actually market there. They would call me and I'd be like, okay, I know I put a flyer in this park, but it's not in this park. It's in another park down the street. Then they were like, okay. So they look at the home and they look at the park and they're like, do you have another home in a nicer park? So all the people that fit my personality, these potential residents, they wanted to buy from me, but just not in that low end park. And so at that point, I knew I really had to work in nicer parks. So I ended up selling at a loss. I lost money and time to an investor. Thank goodness he came along, and he just wanted a cheap home to move on his land, and then he would just rent them out. So, and then I never did business in that park again.
Do you do your own advertisement for recruiting for tenants, or does the park manager also help in that?
Well, they don't want to get into administrative work, but if I have flyers, they always like, yeah, I'll keep them here, up at the front, for them to do an extra job in terms of like mentioning something. You can't really depend on that. So I actually do my own marketing, and I just basically get into the park, post flyers, talk to residents, go around in the local businesses. So a lot of it I do on my end personally.
Well, yeah, well, thank you so much. I mean, this was a very fruitful conversation, and I have learned just so much about the ins and outs of this. Is there anything else that you want to add or share? We're definitely going to be linking your class, that you have out there, and your blog, and I think I have your Twitter on there. All the links are there for ways to communicate with you and to reach out to you. But is there any other thing that you want to share with us today?
Sure, no problem. Well, basically, my podcast, you'll link it, and my website is Adventures in Mobile Homes. And that free training course is for anyone interested in learning more about mobile home investing. It's completely free, and Rich will link it up as well too. And then, if you want to get more interactive with me, I do have a Twitter. It's Mobile Home Girl, which Rich will link it up. And I also have Instagram. It's the same thing, Mobile Home Girl. I'm more on Twitter than Instagram, but I'm getting there, And if you do like coffee, I actually have some pictures of my coffee roasting experiences on my Instagram. So I'm a big coffee connoisseur. So
well, once again, thank you very much for coming on here and sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate it.
Now, let's splash right into Rich and Tony's Beer Review. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook and find a link to our Budgets and Brews website where our beer reviews will be available.
Also on our Facebook page, we give away Budgets and Brews apparel every month, so don't miss a chance to win some free gear.
Once again, this means nothing since we do not know what we're doing. Please use our lack of knowledge for your entertainment.
For this week's beer, we'll be reviewing Goose Island IPA. Just a reminder, we use a scale of 1 to 100, 1 being the worst beer we've ever tasted, and 100 being the best.
And the bottle today, it is green. It's a bright green. It sort of stands out. It's got a goose at the top with a green beak, I guess. I don't know if gooses have beaks. Whatever. Yeah, it's a beak.
You got a bottle?
Yes, it's the IPA. It's about 5.9% alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks pretty good. I got the can, actually. I couldn't find the bottle, but it's a lime green can, IPA written on the side, and in the background is the head of a goose. So it looks pretty cool. It's an Indian Pale Ale. Let's go ahead and dive in.
Yeah, what's interesting, the description says hoppy, grapefruity, and refreshing. I know great about grapefruiting, but yeah.
Like
okay,
so
the first thing is we got the pour head retention, and this is out of 15.
Here we go.
Degrees. Let's do it.
Oh, nice pour going on here.
Solid pour.
Once you get halfway, what are we doing?
Head retention as well. It's almost
Tip
like a perfect one. That is great.
Dude, this pour is looking good.
Yeah. So out of 15, mine is it's hanging around. It's not too foamy. It's definitely better than my previous pours that I have been doing. I would say it's almost about a half-inch pour, just lingering, and it's nice. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a 12.
All right, Rich is giving it a 12, and only Rich can see my video here, but look at that, dude. That is a perfectly poured
about an inch
beer.
At least.
It looks beautiful. It's about 1 inch, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's my best pour yet. I'm going to give that a 15 out of 15.
Whew.
Yeah.
Scored. All right, the appearance and color. I really do appreciate this. This is the bubbles are bubbling. I see a whole bunch just sitting on the bottom of it. It's pretty clear, but at the same time, there is like a hint of fog, but I think that's expected being an IPA. Being a little heavier with that higher alcohol, and it's just, it looks beautiful. And it's more like a golden. It's like straight golden clear, but not super clear, a little foggy. So I really like it. I'm going to go with an 8.
I do not see any fog in mine at all. It looks very clear to me. But I do like how there's like a ton of bubbles going up and down, and it almost looks like there's bigger bubbles than like some of the other beers we've done. It has a nice golden color, kind of looks like you poured some apple juice, but obviously we know this is beer, but it looks good. I mean, it looks like a nice lighter beer. If someone put this in front of me, you definitely think it's on like the lighter side. So I will give it I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Looks good.
All right, and now the smell.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this smells amazing. I love IPAs, so this smells right
my
up my
nose
alley.
got wet.
Oh, did it?
Can't get better than that. So
Yeah.
for me, out of 20, it was definitely a strong hit of like hops or something like right at me, but it wasn't like super like maybe like a double IPA. I think that's a thing, so it was just like a mediocre, oh, here's some hops and IPA. Yes. So I think it's smelling the way it's supposed to smell. So, I can't argue about that. I'm going to give it a 16 out of 20.
For me, it smells amazing. It definitely smells hoppy. You can, by the smell, you can tell that this is an IPA, but also you get like a little bit of that fruitiness. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of that grapefruit hint, and it smells amazing. Like I said, I love IPA, so I'm giving this an 18 out of 20.
Okay. And the taste, and this is out of 30, our favorite
All right.
cut.
Mm-hmm.
That is interesting. And I do eat a grapefruit
Ooh, yeah.
a day. I kid you not. Half a grapefruit every day. That is what I do.
Cholesterol,
It's good for everything. It's a superfood. Antioxidants.
nice.
And that's good. It's almost like that strong grapefruit taste. Like, I don't know if it's because I read that first. I wish I wouldn't have read that though. Because I could see, like, if you have a grapefruit, it's the unique sort of bitterest, strong taste. There's that in there. It is super smooth though, for being almost like 6%. Like, it's really smooth for an IPA.
Yeah.
Just, really drinkable. Couldn't have like, 2 or 3. Like, this is just good. This is good. It is perfect. So for an IPA, I'm going to give it a 26 out of 30.
I think this tastes amazing as well. It's very bold, so you definitely get that flavor. But like you said, for an IPA, it's very drinkable. This isn't something where you're going to like, sometimes people who don't like IPAs, if you have a sip of an IPA, you're like, whoa, no way. Like, this one's very smooth, very good. And it also gives you like there's a lot going on in the tongue when it's in your mouth and you're drinking it. Like, it's very bold flavor. So I love this flavor and I love IPAs. I'm going to give it a 28 out of 30.
All right. And the aftertaste, and this is out of 25, it left me. So right now I don't really even feel that any aftertaste, but it was just like a subtle. It wasn't super lingery. A couple of them, they just been hanging out in there, just like powerful and potent. But this was like, no, like, it was good. It's mini dragon breath of the strongness, and then sort of gone after a while. So I think it was fine. It was a pleasant aftertaste. I'm going to go with a 20 out of 25.
For me, I really like the aftertaste. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't linger around too much, but it gives a little bit of like how we mentioned that grapefruit. It almost feels like a little tartness, like in your mouth, a little bit of the fruity tartness. I like that. It's not, a super great aftertaste. It goes away very quick. I'll give it a 20 out of 25 as well.
Okay. And the overall ranking for me then, out of 100, is going to be an 82. So I did think this was a solid IPA beer. So good job, Goose.
Yeah, good job, Goose Island. I gave it an 88 out of 100. I like IPAs, and this one definitely hit the mark.
Well, that wraps up episode 15. And if you enjoyed listening, we ask that you give it a thumbs up, subscribe, or follow. And oh yeah, please share this episode with family and friends if you found it beneficial. Also, don't forget to leave a review and comment on what topics you want us to cover for the upcoming weeks. That does it. See ya.